Most men want more clarity, more respect, more control over their lives, but few know how to get it. Welcome to the Bro Coach Podcast with Dennis Procopio, the founder of Man Up Life Coaching and the man behind thousands of transformed lives. Not red pill, not therapy, just the evolved man's blueprint for strength, presence, and purpose. Welcome to another episode of the Bro Coach Podcast. I am Andrew Bontz, and I'm here with the Bro Coach himself, Dennis Procopio.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going today?
It's going good, dude. It's a Saturday, and I am ready to rip open this topic. What are we talking about today, Andrew? What do you got for me?
Well, I want to continue a dialogue that we had a couple weeks ago, but didn't get a chance to put a dent on it, about masks men wear, and talking about topics that really intrigued me was like the nice guy mask that we kind of raised with, and the other kind of masks that we navigate as men, where we kind of like hide, right?
So, yeah, that's a mask in a nutshell. I mean, the when guys go out into the world, I think we have this tendency to ask what's appropriate, because we don't want to be extra or be other or stand out, unless we do. And that's a different kind of guy. That's a very performative, extravagant kind of guy. But the average guy just wants to learn the rules, follow the rules, get the social approval, get the stuff. And there are different uniforms that we wear for different jobs. And that's where I think the whole mask idea comes from, right?
So how, if a guy maybe is wearing a mask and doesn't necessarily realize he is, like, how would you help him kind of get through that process?
Let's flip the script on this. If you don't wear a mask, then basically you're being your most authentic self. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like what you're really asking is less about what affectations should you use in a business interview versus what voice should you use when you talk with grandma. And it's less about sort of, social convention. And it's more about, how do I be my authentic self rather than some alternative, So I guess we have to ask ourselves, does a guy know what his authentic self is? And is there some sort of deep fear of vulnerability that would keep him from being his authentic self? Now, you probably know about me at this point that I went to like 24 different schools as a kid. And when you go to different schools, this was like in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I'm 54 at the time of this recording. And having been born in 1970, my school experience was all over this country through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where we didn't have the internet until much later. And so when you went to different places in America, you had drastically different cultures. We didn't have this global culture that we have now. So one of the things that I would have to quickly learn how to do is be a chameleon and figure out how everybody was acting and sort of fit in. My authentic self was kind of a little weirdo, if I can be honest with you. I was an artistic, smart, geeky little, like the last thing in the world I ever thought I'd do is be some leader of men calling himself the Bro Coach. I was like, I really would have expected myself to be some super wacky, creative, alt culture freak. And so I've been looking, peeling the onion of Dennis Procopio, looking for the authenticity my whole life. And that has a big part to do with what we do here in coaching, and it started as an art teacher. If you were in an art class right now, you, Andrew, do you have any artistic abilities?
I mean, I have abilities that I would not say they're very good.
Right. Like I could draw a killer stick man, right? Yeah. So let's say I got a bunch of bros together in an art class and said, but actually with women in it, because now that ups the ante, because now there's, the guy who draws well, the girls are going to go, oh my God, you draw so well. I don't know why I did that voice. Oh my God, you draw so well. There we go. Equal representation, Maureen. I got you. But anyway, you're gonna have guys who are like, we're competitive, right? So the first thing the guy comes in and he's gonna be sweating the dude who draws best, which is gonna make him feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. Which is gonna make him be embarrassed or ashamed to try to just play because when we're kids, we're a lot braver than we are when we're adults. Because as kids, we play and somebody says, yeah, that sucks. Don't quit your day job. And you never draw again. Taking my ball and that's it. Tried art, screw that. I'm out. Let me go make a lot of money, become a corporate leader, and everybody can kiss my ass because I signed your paycheck. Kind of like sort of a Hitler story there, really, if you think about it. Got, I'm Jewish, I'm allowed to say that. Got rejected at Vienna, got his feelings hurt, and then said, oh, okay, well, plan B. So we see that a lot. We see guys who want to create success in their lives. Keyword create. But they're afraid of being creative because being creative involves improvisation. And improvisation means risking looking stupid. And so the mask that a lot of men will wear will have less to do with trying to convince people that you're something you're not, and more to do with trying to hide who you're afraid you really are. Hear me on that? Right. So since this is a radio program, I'll give you some time to ponder, and I'll just fill the airspace, because all of a sudden Andrew just like looks up at the ceiling and says, that's deep. But like what are you, like 6'5", right?
Yeah.
What do you weigh?
260.
What's your body fat?
22%.
So you're like a big, bald, bearded giant, right?
Depending on what room I'm sitting in.
I mean, but for the most part, right? So what was it that made you say, I'm going to go take salsa dancing classes?
I had a good coach.
Yeah, you did.
Honestly, the reason why I did it, because it's something that I was always scared of doing. And well, it was part of the prescriptive process of getting out of my own analytical head. But the real reason why that was kind of the motivation, or like the push off the ledge. But I remember in most environments, when it comes to dancing, I was always the guy sitting on the sidelines and watching other people dance. And I remember my mom put together this video montage of all of my high school memories. And the song was I Hope You Dance. I forget who sings it, and that just resonated with me. Most of my life, I'd watch other people dance and I'd let fear prevent me from getting out and dancing, and just not necessarily caring what other people thought, or, hiding behind the fact that like, oh, I just don't know how, or I'm not good at it. Right. So that was kind of like and I was single at the time, and I wanted to meet women. So, and women like to dance. So there was that motivation too.
I get it. And I think dancing is actually a fantastic, I think it's a perfect metaphor for taking risks that arguably challenge historic, traditional, masculinity roles. And they're cultural. By the way, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I think the song you're thinking of was originally Leanne Womack, but then later Chris Stapleton covered it, which is also interesting, right? Kind of like when Tracy Chapman, I was in my 20s when she came out with Fast Car. And then the cover became sort of a tribute, again, with a male singer, embracing a song that was originally written by a woman. There's this alarm that goes off for a dude. Like, am I doing something feminine? Am I doing something that makes me look gay? Or, I mean, assuming you're straight, like if you're gay, then whatever, right? But if you're afraid of seeming like unmasculine and gay or whatever, then either you're somebody like myself who comes from an Italian, Italians are not scared to cook. We're not scared to dance. We're not scared to, hug our male relatives, kiss them on the cheek, very European. You have these cultures, Latin cultures, the Latino culture, Brazil, the black men, they're like, dude, dancing isn't gay. I can pull women. Like, I can pull anybody on the dance floor because I got moves like, like Ursha. And, there's other guys who are these like blue collar, Midwest bros who are like, I don't dance. What do I look like, a homo? And then there's the subculture, that's like real gangsters don't dance. They lean with it, And so dancing is one of those places where you ask yourself, can I let myself move to the music, but still and be expressive and be fun and attract women without like looking like a little fruit wiggling his butt all over the place like he wants something, And that's a head trip. That's a head trip. So how do you rectify that? Well, I've got a coach right now, my dude Steve, who's an athlete. He's a brainiac. He's a real smart guy. Went to college for, whatever. White guy learned how to speak Mandarin. Worked at high executive level, in tech recruitment, whatever, that kind of thing. Started training BJJ at the time of this recording. He's either a purple belt or by now he's probably made brown belt. And the first day he stepped into my office as a client, he said, I was like, so what do you do for hobbies? He's like, well, I have to say, salsa dancing, like dance just changed my life. And I did. I was like, that was the last thing I expected to hear this dude say. Oh yeah, dude, dance changed my life. And I'm like a cowboy saying that. It was just weird. I'm like, okay. Turns out he's a killer salsa dancer. He even has taught salsa dancing classes. My guys, I'm like, if you want to meet women, go to a salsa dancing class. Boom, done. So, what does a dude who is afraid to take a salsa dancing class has to challenge in order to be able to do it? For you, what did you have to challenge? What was the narrative that you had to confront?
I think for me, it was not looking stupid.
Especially at 6'5".
All right. And also, being 40 years old, to where the being bad at something muscle, right? There's like a rep muscle or a weak muscle, where if you're a lot of your ego is attached to being like, hey, I'm really good at all of these things, right? So dressing and getting past the I'm going to suck at this at first, right? And also the judgment of if I suck at this, they'll all laugh at me, right? Or they'll think I'm less than, or they won't think I am, cool, or they won't like me, or they won't be attracted to me because I am new, right? Or I look silly, or I screw it up, and that kind of stuff. Like all of that narrative in your head, that most of it is just a whole lot of bullshit, but it's certainly there.
So let's move down the line so the guys aren't like, all right, is this a TED talk for like salsa dancing? So it's not, but I'm telling you, if you're single and you want to meet women, fastest way in the world to do that is take a dancing class. I'm telling you. And I'm also telling you that I'm not a dancer. I remember I talked about Steve, right? He's like, hey, bro, I'm teaching this salsa dancing class thanks to your coaching. And I'm like, okay, let me bring my drums down and I'll drum for you. I like to drum and I'm good at it. So that's my way of participating in the music. And that's a way of being authentic. I'm not a dancer. It's just not my thing. But that environment is a good environment to kind of let your guard down. And we have a tendency to judge and ridicule when we feel potentially threatened, right? You see this all the time. Haters hate because their judgment of other people is an extension of their self-judgment. And a way to liberate them is to get them to stop judging themselves and to try the thing that they're scared to do because they're scared to look stupid. They're scared to look unmanly. They're scared to be ridiculed at. They don't want to be the person who drops a deuce in the pool party. Like that's the moment that terrifies everyone because somewhere deep inside us men, we're afraid of social ostracization. We want to be, we're pack dogs, dude. We respect the alpha, we respect the lineup, and the last thing we want to be is like the queer bird over there going, I can't figure out any of this, Okay, there, Chief. Why don't you just sit this one out? Men are doing stuff, right? So masks. What are you if you remove all of your masks?
Your authentic self. I mean,
what is that?
It's like, to me, it's like the unreserved version of you has no fear of judgment, right? You're just doing you and not trying to accomplish, not trying to sway, not trying to transact or attract, just doing what feels right.
Okay.
What feels good.
Right. So there's a scary line there. Right? There is a scary line there. If a dude told himself, I am going to allow myself to do what feels right and what feels good, and you're walking down the street and you see a chick in a see-through sundress, in an anarchist environment where there are no consequences other than just your own conscience and social shame, doing what's right and what feels good could get you in trouble. I'm not trying to make it weird, but I'm saying if this is a show for guys and we're being honest, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Women have historically chosen the bear, right? Because there's a difference between a guy holding back his predatory, primitive, conquer the female and make babies with her, because I'm a caveman sort of drive, and being in a room with a gay dude who's like, oh, don't worry, you're totally safe with me. Right? There's a different vibe. Right. And so that's where some of that masking comes from. It comes from saying, I don't trust myself to follow every feeling.
Hmm.
And that's why we say that a man needs a code. You have to have a code, and you have to decide for yourself what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. And you have to exercise discipline.
Hey man, stop spinning your wheels. If you're serious about leveling up your career, your relationships, and your mindset, it's time to man up. At Man Up Life Coaching, we cut the excuses and build discipline, confidence, and purpose. Book your free strategy session now at manuplifecoaching.com/application. Don't fill it out if you're not ready to grind, but if you are, this call could change your life. Man Up Life Coaching, elite life coaching for men by men.
Because not everything that you feel is something that it's appropriate to react to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, having that core set of, values or mission or purpose, code, whatever you want to call it, and having that filter, right? Like, is this just a feeling, or is this something I need to act on? And I think that's a bit of the challenging part towards like when you bring in intuition, right? Where talk a lot about trusting your intuition and differentiating that from like feelings and navigating. And that's something that's been really challenging for me and been part of the process of working with you as a coach, is navigating like where you're making decisions from. Are you making it from like the neck up, or, down in your gut, and figuring out how to go about that process, and, that trusting your intuition versus leaning into feelings, right? And navigating those moments of you're in your head too much. Like for me, I'm very analytical, logical, right brain, kind of more scientist minded, versus leaning into your intuition and that creative mask, right? Like that creative version of me, that play version of me. I even remember when I learned West Coast swing dancing. And in the beginning, all, learning the steps and the cadence and what to do when. And in my brain, it's like lift arm here, step here, move left foot here, like here. It's all sequencing. And then eventually I got past that. And after months and months of this practice, I was getting comments from women that are like, wow, I love the way you move and the way you flow. And it was like this release of creative, it's like a release of the control, right? So, and leaning into that authentic version of me that wasn't as concerned about looking cool, but was more concerned about the moment and just leaning into what I guess felt right. But yeah, it's interesting.
It is interesting. So if I'm a guy listening to this, I'm probably saying, wow, I relate to a lot of this. I don't necessarily see structure in this conversation, but I get what they're doing. These two guys are just kind of starting with masks and exploring the male experience and how we have a tendency to feel a feeling and then weigh it against a thought. And the analysis piece is wanting to make sure that we don't do something inappropriate, because consequences can be dire. I mean, drinking is a perfect example. You know me, you know that I'm sober going on, I think 18 years. Let's see, April of 2007 in New Orleans, post Hurricane Katrina. I finally decided it was time to stop drinking. Here's why I drank. I drank because it was the only time I could relieve the pressure of feeling incredibly conspicuous, feeling judged by everyone, social anxiety, fear of failure, determination to succeed, so tense in every situation that I was like practically vibrating. All I ever heard from people is how intense I was. I stared at people unblinkingly. I had this David Goggins winner mentality where, getting a 99 on a test was not an option. I needed to get 100. And it was exhausting. And so when I drank, I let all of my inhibitions down, and I allowed myself, or not I allowed myself, like I got so drunk that I basically put the security guard to sleep, and whoever was monitoring me, making sure I didn't do dumb shit, like I got them so drunk they passed out. It's like, what? Cat's out? Go. If it feels good, do it. And then I'd wake up the next morning and I don't know what was worse, the stuff I remembered that I did or the stuff that I didn't even remember that I did and had to find out through, texts and stuff like, bro, you blew the spot. You're not welcome in that. Or you owe a few people an apology. Do you remember cutting a guy's hat with a razor blade? What? Yeah, you remember breaking a wine glass? No. And like threatening somebody with it? What? Like, but those were things that felt good to do in the time. I was being my authentic self. So, took the mask all the way off on that. So what's the problem there? The problem there is that I had repressed a lot of, I felt trapped. I was living in jail. I was not allowing myself I was being an accommodator all day long, and I was not allowing myself to draw boundaries, to say I don't necessarily agree with you, to take a chance and be wrong and own it without being too proud to take criticism. I was just yes, sure, yes, constantly adjusting, constantly self-correcting, being a people pleaser while simultaneously being a very, competitive and sneaky person, always looking for an advantage. And when I finally drank, it was like, I'm going to tell you how I really feel about you. You're attractive, and I'm going to put my hands all over you because I'm following my authentic blah, blah, blah. So in the beginning of this piece, I said, a man needs a code. I think it's important to have a code. Code says things like, I feel like I should probably treat other people the way I would want to be treated. Now, if you're a Christian, a lot of your code comes from the Bible. If you're Jewish, a lot of your code comes from the Talmud of the Torah. If you're Islamic, a lot of your code comes from the Quran. If you're spiritual but not religious, where does your code come from? You kind of have to make your code. And your code should actually be based less on how does it make me feel and more on what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Right?
Yeah.
is that wearing a mask, or is that just demonstrating self-governance? Because the difference between liberty and freedom is you're allowed to do anything you want. Liberty is you're at liberty to do the things that you want as long as ...
So it sounds like we've talked about two different spectrums here, right? There's if you take this narrative and be like, oh, I'm just being my authentic self, so therefore I do whatever I want. Like you can take that way too far, and you could basically become psychopaths, right? Where you're just allowing, doing whatever you want, and life's anarchy, right? You're like,
Or more specifically, a sociopath. You're doing something that serves you with no empathy for how your actions might affect another person. And that's a critical word, empathy.
right. And then the other side, where I think most men are probably too close to, where they have so much rigidity to their life that they don't let their authentic self out of the closet, right? And I don't think we're probably too closer to that side than the sociopath side of things in today's modern masculinity world, where it's like we're so rigid in our ways, where we don't allow that, the fun, joyful, creative,
Or just honest. Honest. Because your brain went to, like being fun, being creative, and allowing yourself to be happy. My brain went to, let's face it, when I was a kid, I learned that, boys were made of snakes and snails and puppy dog tails, and girls were made of sugar and spice and everything nice. Right off of the bat, I accepted that men are like women are these perfect princesses that we have to accommodate. I have to take my jacket off and put it in like mud so that she doesn't get her freaking feet dirty, or carry her across the water, but not in a gross way because we want her to choose me and not the bear. Like there's so much that goes into understanding a healthy masculinity in this culture. And I think women and children have been victimized so long by abuse of men in power who are like, screw it. If I feel like doing it, I'm going to do it. I mean, look at somebody who has money, freaking Diddy, right? Like Tiger Woods, right? The whole Epstein thing. The conversation where the argument is the reason you don't do it is because you can't get away with it, not because you actually have any, upstanding moral or ethical character, right? On a purge day, if you 100% could get away with anything you wanted, how many people would say, I'm not going to do anything different because I'm just adherent to my values, right? I think a small percentage of our population, some people would stay home for fear of getting, railroaded by the, roving flocks of marauders, and they'd stay home hiding, not because they didn't want to do the stuff, but because they were afraid of being on the ugly side of purge day. Some people would go out and be like, I am going to loot, I am going to pillage, I am going to do, there's going to be mayhem. I've been waiting all year for this, right? Screw Thanksgiving, screw Christmas. This is my favorite holiday where I really get to do whatever I want with no consequences. But what percentage of the population would say, no, I'm just going to stay home because I'm not a dick? Or I'll go out and help people. because I'm not a dick. Right? So what does that mean, being not a dick? What that means, we're back, is having an appropriate moral and ethical code. I'm thinking of two people right now, and I've always said I would love to coach these guys. I'm not there yet. Even though I've been doing this for 13 years, even though I have 25,000 hours in this, even though I have a hero's backstory which qualifies me, I'm just not there yet. But I would love to work with Donald Trump, and I would love to work with Kanye. These are two people who are so easy to hate. And what they have in common is they are 100% authentic. Like, for real. And, I don't want to make it political. I'll just go ahead and say, for the record, if I were to pick a party, it would be libertarian. I'm concerned about the two-party system. But I'm not talking about Donald Trump, the politician, President Trump. I'm not talking about Kanye, like in, the context of his anti-Semitic statements specifically, or any of that. I'm just talking about guys, who have allowed themselves to rip the mask all the way off and be completely authentic. You'll notice that the people who like them for that reason. They're honest. And there's something admirable about that. Unfortunately, as you said, there's also an argument that there is some sociopathy there, that, becomes problematic if you're, let's say, Jewish and Kanye's just dropped N-word Heil Hitler. Like, hey, I appreciate your authenticity, but you got me a little scared now. But at least you know where you stand. So, what's the real question here? The real question here is not only how can I be my authentic self, but how can I be my authentic self while adhering to code of appropriateness that I have designed and had verified by other men. Like, yeah, there's a lot of overlap between your code and mine. I think you're doing the right thing. Here's a classic example: hitting women. Is it ever okay to put your hands on a woman? I'll ask you. You're a father of 3 girls. Is it ever, I'm not saying you hate, to hate your kids or not. I'm just saying in general, do you see a situation where it's appropriate to hit a woman?
99% of the time, no. But if she's coming at me and my family with a knife, then yes.
I gotta do what you gotta do, right?
I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah.
Is it? No. If it's because you can't control your own anger, and your only way of expressing your anger is by hitting somebody else, then absolutely not. Out of self-defense or defense of my family, then that's very situational. But yeah.
Right. Linda Rousey or Holly Holm, Betch Kohei or any of these famously, tough women, comes up to your table and spits in your face at the Waffle House. And you're like, well, this isn't cool. If that were a dude, literally just hawks a loogie right in the middle of your forehead, you'd jump up, you'd wipe your forehead off, you'd jump up, your family's there, and your masculine provide and perform instincts would come out. And you would probably, if that were a dude who did that, you'd immediately grab that dude by the lapels, as it were, and be like, what the hell? And still, if you're a good dude, you'd be like, maybe this is a crazy person. Maybe he thinks I'm somebody else. Maybe there's an explanation. Please give me a reason not to hit you. But then if that person kept escalating, putting hands on you, you'd do what you had to do. So again, what if it's Ronda Rousey and she does the same thing? She punches you so hard in your chin, she almost knocks you out. Is it appropriate to put hands on her? In that case, I say yes. I don't say, oh, I can never hit a woman. I say, you know what? I think meritocracy is kind of how the game is played. And if you're capable of bullying me and I got to do what I got to do, then I'm going to do what I got to do. But like you said, 99% of the time, I would avoid any fight. But if it's a woman, I admit, I would really take a lot more than if it were a dude. Why do I ask that? Because I think establishing your code means working those things out ahead of time. Working those things out ahead of time. Once you just like you said about Dan, you don't go into a salsa class and just start jumping around like a hippie on Molly and say, I'm just being authentic in my, in my appreciation of the music. There's rules to this thing. Once you know the rules, once you have the rules down, then you can be fluid and authentic in how you operate within those guidelines. Jazz. Look at jazz. Like, jazz still has, it can sound like, in New Orleans, when I was a musician in New Orleans, the joke was always jazz and nothing but five motherfuckers playing five different songs at the same time. But it's a joke because it really isn't, right? So every man needs a code. You need a rule set. That's the part where if you're learning an instrument, you got to practice scales. That's the part where if you're going to lift weights, you got to learn proper form. That's the part where if you're hanging out if you're traveling to an Islamic state, you have to understand, you can't drink alcohol here or whatever. You have to know the rules. Who makes your rules? You make your rules. Who helps make your rules? Society. Once your rules, your code of ethics and morals are dialed in, then how can you be authentic without having to wear a mask? I'm going to land the plane in a very interesting way on this. I believe, and I've learned this from coaching, I believe that when you truly remove your mask, you become to the next human is a mirror. And in that mirror, you reflect all of the best of their potential and goodness. I work with you've seen my schedule. I work with a lot of dudes, man, right? Right? I'm working 60 hours easy a week, right? Doing one hour session with dudes all over the world, and high, like ballers, like, real guys, where the information that the protocols that I'm imparting are critical to their survival in corporate environments and, family situation. I've had coaches in training ask me how I can be my authentic self from session to session while still being this sort of weird chameleon who can adapt so easily from one coaching session to another so that no two coaching session Dennis's are the same. Like ChatGPT, like training an AI. When I'm in session with you, Andrew, I'm a model trained on Andrew. When I'm in session with John or Bob or Bill or Fred, I'm trained on them. I'm a mirror. What is the best way to be a mirror? You tell me. How do you remove the mask so that when a person interacts with you, they see a mirror, they see their face reflected in your face, and they see the best version of themselves, like mirror, mirror on the wall? How do you do that? Do you imagine?
I think with how I do it would be with empathy and knowing who I am, right? And knowing what I stand for, and being able to put that, a lot of the things aside of like what I want, right? And then just showing up for them and just listening to what they're saying, what they're showing me, and being present.
Empathy. What do you mean by empathy? What does that mean? I'm a dude, I'm listening to this. I'm like, what are these guys talking about? Empathy. What is that? Like I have to poop? Is that what that means?
That's just,
Like you have to poop and I'm aware of it? As I could tell? Like, what is empathy?
I think empathy is the permission to, where you understand what the other person is feeling and making space for it.
Or thinking.
Mhm.
Doesn't just have to be feeling, or thinking. Right?
Mhm.
You know the little gif of like Shrek kind of looking up and going, with the eyes? That's a male empathy gif. It says, I know what you're thinking. Right?
Mhm.
I'm going to go a little deeper on this one. Sorry, guys, but I play to a deep crowd. The epitome of empathy is being what you are when all of your affectations are removed. Because if you are able to remove all of your affectations and be what's left, which is a very esoteric, like, dude, how many men over the course of history have concerned themselves with who am I and why am I? Identity. Who am I? How am I perceived in this world? How do I perceive myself? Who is Dennis Anthony Procopio? Who am I? Mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is this bald guy with the big frickin' Jewish Italian nose and teeth that aren't exactly paper white and frickin' eyes that look somewhere between like Stallone and Pacino? Who is this particular human I'm looking at? What makes him unique? What makes him special? And two, identity leads to purpose. What am I here to do? What will my legacy have been? Why am I here? One of the most valuable things that men get from my coaching, Mr. Bro Coach guy over here, is recognizing that they're answering their questions in reverse. They're trying to figure out who they are so that it can inform why they're here. If we strip away all of your affectations, which means if we strip away you're trying to design an avatar. It starts when you're a toddler. It really picks up again when you're a teenager. And then by your adolescence, you've sort of crafted your style and your worldly avatar. That's where the masks really start. Yeah. And by the time you're on your deathbed, you're realizing or approaching your deathbed, you're ripping masks off and you're trying to get down to your core essence, because whatever's going to heaven or whatever your jam is, or being recycled back into the quantum field, whatever that energy is, the force or the Holy Spirit or the chi or whatever you want to call it, whatever that je ne sais quoi is that makes life alive and aware of itself, that's you. And to make it even more problematic, that you is not singular, it's collective. And that's our show. No, but no, really. No, really. So you have this collective energy that is a collective consciousness that can move like birds in murmuration, that can move as one. That's a big word, murmuration, Google it, but can move parts that can move together as one. And when each individual recognizes that its purpose is to be in service to that larger collective identity that we are, when we back up far enough, then we understand our purpose. Our purpose is primarily service to our larger identity, to the hive mind, as it were. If we want to simplify it, we're bros, service to men, to the fraternal order. That's what we're doing here right now on a Saturday. We're not getting paid for this. We're trying to save lives, and we're trying to help guys to feel understood, right? We are in service to the ism. That's whatever it is in you, in me, and in the guy listening right now that resonates at some level and says, I don't even know why I do this, but it feels right. And if I check my code, it doesn't break any laws. So we're good. Certain words I'm apparently not allowed to use. Bro, easy with the Hitler stuff. But I'll bend the rules a little bit, being my authentic self. I don't give a shit. Cancel me, fuckers. But the love is there. Anybody who knows the Bro Coach knows that the Bro stands for brother, and then I'm from Philly, and it's the city of brotherly love. So what is authenticity? Authenticity is love for your brother or sister, and love for the big you. That informs your identity. So my identity, I'm a Bro Coach, apparently. I didn't start out this way. As a kid, I didn't say, I don't want to be Spider-Man. I want to be a Bro. No. So what you're seeing here is I'm still wearing a mask. I'm wearing the mask of Dennis the Bro Coach. For that matter, I'm wearing a mask of Dennis. But under all of that is that indescribable. That is the reason that we are here to begin with. And it's our responsibility to live in service to the greater good. I know that's heavy and philosophical, but if you're my client, you're probably heavy and philosophical. So tell me, how does that hit for you? I'll whistle the Jeopardy song or something while you're thinking.
It's a lot.
That's what she said.
Right.
Sorry. Here come my haters.
Well, how it hits for me is, I think that this whole authenticity talk and figuring it out, and as you go to the deep stuff of who am I, and that age-old question that humans have been trying to figure out since the dawn of time, right? So since we've been humans, is an amazing question to ask, right? Because I think that most men live in numbing and performance and what trying to fix their daddy issues, trying to like do for everyone else, right? But then you talk about the flip side of the coin of what's the opposite of that? Like, do whatever I want, right? Like,
Right.
and having that code is glue, keep you out of jail, and also like living life, right? And being, figuring out what makes you tick and figuring out what brings you fulfillment. And the glue is part of the glue is service, part of the glue is love, and part of the glue is brotherhood, right? To where if you don't know it, your community is there. If you have hopefully you have a good community of men around you to, when we make mistakes, to kick us, slap us, or hug us back on track.
Yeah, both folks need hugs. They also sometimes need an uppercut. Like, that's real.
A slap and a hug, some guys need a slap and a hug, verbally or physically, if it reaches that level. And so yeah, for me, that's where it hits, where it's like that the recipe to authenticity, and it just acknowledging that there's always going to be masks, and just be like, that's just part of being human, where it's just part of life. And bed, that where we really want to get to in this conversation, where we spent most of the time, is the recipe for authenticity and mixing that all together between love, honesty, and community, and the code is where it's at. And how do you paint that? How do you figure that out for yourself? Then, I don't know if we have all the answers, but we spent an hour talking about it.
How could we possibly have all the answers when we don't even have the right questions? Sometimes the best question is not a question. Let me share something with you before we leave here today. And by the way, you should definitely title this session "Why There's a Mask in Masculinity." See what I did there? I used my brain to do a funny thing. Waka waka. There is a mask. There has to be. Here's why. Kind of like if we were all invisible. You throw sheet like ghosts or something. You throw sheets over us so that we can all see each other, right? And, one sheet has, a checkered pattern. Another sheet is black. Another sheet is white. Another sheet is brown, yellow, red. One has a peacock on it. One has a wolf, whatever. Like, there's all these different, sort of wrappers that we put around our energy, right? Because we're not humans having a spiritual experience. We're energy having a human experience. So I don't think mask is a bad word. The problem with mask is when you take one of your masks too seriously, right? You go into the universal dress-up box of life and you say, today I'm going to be a pirate. Today I'm going to be a princess. Today I'm going to be a poet. Today I'm going to be a pauper. Yes, these are Frank Sinatra lyrics. I told you I was Italian. Speaking of father wounds, and we're back. My father wore a mask to his grave. His mask was Tony Pro Las Vegas. He understood personal branding way before the internet was a thing. He was character act, Tony Pro. He became Tony Pro and he committed to the shtick. What I think the best thing we can do as men is to recognize that no matter what little costume we've taken out of the dress-up box to be. We're allowed to play that character, but we're not obligated. Don't be so committed to your character that you forget what you really are. You're whatever you were before you made that choice. And if you don't like it, you can change it. Yo, Andrew, can I get an amen?
Amen.
All right. Well, if you've been listening to this, I appreciate you. We are being authentic, and we're guys who do a thing. And the thing is that we are men who are husbands, fathers, brothers, sons, and we believe that in this day and age, masculinity is a topic because the landscape has changed, and with it, masculine identity is changing. What does it mean to be a healthy male? As a coach who has walked through the fire and earned his stripes and paid the iron price for the wisdom that I am offering in these conversations, we believe that masculinity is constantly being updated, amended, and rewritten. And it's being updated, amended, and rewritten by men. So if you're a man, you're an author, we're interested in your voice and what you contribute to masculinity. And if you're a man, we appreciate that you're receptive to some of the ideas that we're sharing, because there is a hive mind. This is a brotherhood. And at the end of the day, we love you, we respect you, and we want to keep you not only alive, but happy, because the world either succeeds or fails by healthy masculine leadership. Women with good dads are the best. Men who either have good dads or have overcome terrible fathering experiences and have become good dads are the future. So if you're picking up what we're putting down here today, we encourage you to, I don't know, do the thing. What do they do? What's our outro on this, Andrew? You did the thing.
Like, subscribe, comment. If this is your first episode, take a look at the last 4. All different structures, all different topics, but just pay attention, because we're building something here, and you're taking part in something that we think is going to make a difference. So thanks for being here.
Cool start. All right. On that note, catch you on the flip side, fellas. Thanks for listening.